Thank you for being with me today. So, we talked in episode 1 about it has to be me moments and life being a collection of it has to be me moments. And in episode 2, we talked about it being your yes and your no, and noticing and empowering yourself to be ready to take action on your it has to be me moments. So, today I want to talk about what holds you back from taking action, from claiming and giving yourself permission to go after what you want. And I think that that's a number of things, or at least that's what I've experienced in my own personal life and throughout my work as a coach and as a speaker and a strategist and all of the different things that I do. So I want to ask you, what is your vision for your life? And what is holding you back from going after some of it? You're probably going after some of it, but maybe not some other things. So I talked about my favorite quote, with Nelson Mandela in episode 1 and episode 2. Yes, I'm a bit of a groupie. About this concept of not losing. I never lose. I either win or I learn. So if we buy into that there is no losing, there's only winning and learning, I think the next step of taking action and feeling good about the choices that we make is recognizing what is within our control and what is not within our control, and knowing what is yours to hold and what's not yours to hold. So what's in your control? It's your thoughts and your actions, right? Which is a lot. It's a lot. That's what makes up a life. Right? We are the sum of our choices. We're the sum of our actions. We're the sum of our thoughts. Thoughts become things, all the stuff we could say, right? What's not within our control? The thoughts and actions of others, period. Right? Now that's a lot, right? Because there's billions of people on planet Earth and everyone's exerting their free will and doing what they're going to do, right? We can't control that. What I think is really important within the context of the it has to be me conversation is, do you see what is not within your control as a barrier to you getting what you want? Oh, that was a big one for me, where when I was much younger, I definitely had a propensity to see all the things, put my magnifying glass on all of the things that were not within my control and be terrified of them because I couldn't control them. And then when I took up the invitation through friends, through family members, through experiences, through therapy, through all of it, right? I was constantly being invited to put the magnifying glass over on the things that I could control, because that's the only way that I was going to change my life. So I talked in episode 1 about some of the experiences, with death, with my marriage, there were a lot of people making choices and dying. And, I talked about some stories about things that were not within my control. But what was within my control was how I received that information, how I interpreted that information, and how I took action on that information. And that's where I really started to empower myself, and I invite you to do the same, So what about this idea, if we accepted that we are the solution always, and if you throw enough time and thought and resource yourself into really figuring out something, you will figure it out, even if you need help to do it, which we all do. So it's a perspective shift, isn't it? Right? So if we choose to put more weight on the things that we can control, which is a lot if you think about it, your thoughts and your actions, how you interpret the world and how you take action on it, it's huge. We have infinite power. And when we believe that we have infinite power, that's where the magic happens. So you get to choose whether you get what you want, period. And so even if something's really, really hard and you can't control some elements of it, you control what you learn from it. You control how much you participate in it, and then whether you choose to stay in it or get out and take the lesson and move on to the next thing, right? I think part of it has to be me is recognizing what does not have to be me. And I think often we stay too long at the party because we're attached to one particular outcome. I have certainly done that many, many, many times in my life where I will push and push and push because I'm invested in one outcome and I want to make that outcome happen no matter what. Sometimes it's just not what's going to serve me. So in episode 1, I talked about my marriage, for example, where that relationship was not healthy for me or for him. We needed to get out, and actually he had the courage to end it. I didn't, right? So that was a situation where I should have taken my chips off the table much sooner, and I chose not to. Right? Because I was hiding in something because I was afraid of what was coming next. So often we stay with comfy slippers on when they're actually moldy. They're comfortable because it's what we know, but they're actually making us sick, right? I've certainly done that in my life. So I invite you to look at how you have done that in your life and how you might still be doing that right now, right? So I think, the biggest thing is the fear of failing. The fear of failing, the fear of being humiliated, the fear of being embarrassed, the fear of people judging us, the fear of getting it wrong, just getting it wrong, right? We want to get it right, you know? I- You know, it's often the fear is not it's often not the doing. It's not the acting. It's not the thing that we've got to do. It's the fear of the outcome. It's the fear of the result, right? So the effort's not what we're afraid of. Often it's the outcome. So if we accept the premise that there is no losing, there's only winning and learning, then the outcome can't be wrong. So then the effort is worth whatever the outcome is. Suddenly we're in this really empowering place, right? So, and look, I don't know about you. I used to be a chronic worrier. So years ago, I would worry, and I would expend all this time and energy worrying about all the terrible things that could happen if I did X, Y, Z. And none of it ever happened, or very, very little of it. Or even if it did kind of happen, it didn't happen in exactly the way that I thought it was going to happen. So I was literally expending so much energy worrying, and it was keeping me disconnected. Right? That fear, that analysis paralysis of all of the things was keeping me disconnected from being engaged in the thing, So I talked about this in episode 1, didn't I? About this relationship between disconnection and connection. Are we seeking out connection or are we seeking out disconnection? So I ask you that again. Where do you seek out connection and where do you seek out disconnection? If we thread the needle a bit further beyond that fear of failing, fear of not being enough, fear, right? If we think about, I talked about this in episode 1, right? About this idea that fear and excitement, they're activated in the same place in the body, right? It's this really intense feeling, right? And really the difference between the two is the fear is that we're attached or we choose to buy in or believe that the outcome will be negative and bad for us and will hurt us. And excitement, we choose to believe that the outcome will be really, really good and feel really good and be amazing and be everything that we want or whatever. So they get activated in this really similar place. So I think often that the fear of failing, the fear of not being enough is that we are buying into a narrative that has been installed by somebody else. So there's that old adage of our family knows how to press our buttons because they installed them, right? And gosh, I found that to be true in my life. So I want to ask you who the dominant voice in your head is. That you listen to the most or engage with the most, that informs how you feel about yourself and your value and your worth and what you are capable of doing. So what I found as a coach during my office hours, during the video calls in my program with the thousands of people that I touch every year, is that it's typically a parent. It's typically your mother or your father. And so we can't get rid of that voice. And why would we want to, right? I mean, for me, I have amazing parents, but even if you had an abusive parent, it's still constructive to engage with that, learn from it, listen to what it's triggering in you, and how you can find your way through that, work with that in order to get to a better place, learning and growing. So part of it has to be me, recognizing it has to be me, taking action on it has to be me, is learning to engage with that voice, that dominant voice, in a way that serves you expanding into the better parts of yourself instead of contracting, connecting instead of disconnecting. So, an exercise that I give people during office hours a lot, because this comes up a ton every single week, this comes up about the dominant voice, about a parent, is you can't drown it out. It's part of your history. It's part of your DNA. So what about this idea of saying, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. But I don't agree with you today. I don't believe you today because I've grown and I'm capable of so many things beyond what you believe that I'm capable of. And that's what I choose to expand into today. Because who you choose to spend time with, the people that you choose to spend time with, the people you choose to be in communication or in relationship with, even if they're not alive anymore, we are still in communication with them. We talk to them, we hear the voice, we're hearing the mantra over and over and over, we're playing that tape over and over, right? You become like the people that you listen to, spend time with. You look into the mirrors of those people, and often those mirrors are distorted, plain and simple, right? And it may not be mirrors that are serving you, right? So what are the limiting beliefs about your potential, about what you are capable of, that you are choosing to listen to and buy into, right? About, holding on to stories that don't serve you. You're not enough. You're trash. You're not smart enough. You're fat. You're ugly. Nobody's going to listen to you. I mean, I'm just trying to think of some things that have come up in my office hours, right? No one would love you. I mean, can you imagine? But people do say this to their children, right? Or partners say this, who can you be listening to, staying close to, that is going to help you see that you are incredible and you are capable of anything? Who are those people in your life? And can you keep them close to you? Can you keep asking questions and listening and looking at yourself through those people's eyes? The people that want to elevate and celebrate you, lift you up, help you expand, help you learn, help you grow, right? What do all successful people have in common? They believe that they're successful. They believe that they can be successful. They believe that they can do it. They decide it has to be me. It's the only difference, right? And then they go off and do the work. And if they can't do it on their own, they resource themselves and they connect with people that are going to help them get there. That's what all successful people do, right? But it starts with your yes and your no, your belief in yourself. I can do it. It has to be me. One of the big things that holds us back, holds me back, and I wonder if I'm going to ask you, does this hold you back, is I'm not ready. It's not the right time. I can't do this right now because blah, 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 blah. Oh gosh, whew, I can certainly do that. Like I was saying in episode 2, we get addicted to our excuses, right? Because they're comfortable. It's what we know. It gives us an out. I don't like the word try. I've given myself permission to remove it from my lexicon, remove it from my vocabulary. And I invite everyone in my 60-day reset to do the same thing during office hours, because to me, try immediately gives us an out that we're not quite going to get there. Why is the Nike slogan one of the most famous, most empowering slogans? Just do it. Just do it. And then clean up the mess later. Just do it. Give it a go. Do it. So when people say, well, I'm trying to be this way, I'm trying to eat better. Well, what did you do today? Did you eat something better? Yeah. Well, you're not trying. You're doing it. You're doing it. You just want to do it more. And it's on a continuum. We just want to be better and better and better. Well, you can't get better without practicing, without giving it a go, right? So you're ready when you decide that you're ready. And nobody can decide it for you. Nobody gets to decide that for you. You get to decide if you're ready. You get to decide if you're ready. And I'm a big fan now of doing things before I'm ready, doing things that scare me, just doing it when I've got the urge. Yeah, I'm doing it. And you know what? I'm not going to do it perfectly. I'm not going to do it right all the time. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to figure it out. So, okay, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I play that game with myself a lot. I don't know if you play that game, but what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And, Lisa in my office hours last week gave this to everybody on office hours. And I'm going to steal it from her and I'm going to give it to you, which is I play out the movie till the very end. I don't just sit in one scene in the movie, is what she said. I play it out. So she was using it as she was talking about a food choice, about somebody, Debbie, that's what it was. Debbie was on office hours talking about, am I ever not going to feel deprived? Like I went, at my office and they had all these donuts on a plate and everybody else was eating the donuts and I couldn't have the donuts. And I just went home and I just, the whole day I was dreaming about having the donuts and why I couldn't have the donut. Am I ever not going to feel like that? And I gave her something that I got from another member in my 60-day reset, Brandy. So Brandy was a member of the beta group of my program, and she wanted to lose all of this weight, and she did. It was spectacular. But she told this story about how she went to the fair and everybody else was eating funnel cakes and having soda pop and fairy floss and all the things, right? And she was with a group of friends. And they were just looking at her and sort of feeling kind of sorry for her. And they turned to her and said, oh, Brandy, we're so sorry that you're on that weird thing and that weird diet and you can't have this. We're so sorry for you. And she turned to them and, oh man, I'm going to give this to you because this is a pearl. This is gold. Thank you. Oh, I can have it whenever I want to. I just choose not to today. Is that not just fabulous? I have given that to so many people now and taken it on in my own life that I can have it whenever I want it. I just choose not to. Oh gosh, it's so empowering, isn't it? It takes you from this reactionary victim, something's happening to me, as opposed to, no, this is something I'm choosing. I'm proactively choosing this. It is an empowering choice that I'm making. Right? Because I kind of know that food makes you sick, right? So, and I'm not going to feel good from it. So going back to what Lisa was saying was she plays out the movie. She was giving this to Debbie, plays out the movie the whole time of, okay, so I eat the donut and I feel really good in the moment, but then I drive home and, I start to feel really grumbly in my tummy and I start to not feel so good. And then I get really tired and I want to take a nap. And then I wake up the next morning and I've got a headache and I feel really heavy. And then I've put on some weight. She plays out the movie till the end. And we all sat there in office hours and we just went, yeah. And it was such a beautiful example of, even though I'm holding space and facilitating those meetings, we are all teaching each other and we are all learning from each other. And every single person has something to contribute. You have something to contribute. Even if you don't feel ready or not, you're not being ready is someone else's full, caning it, like just being so successful, right? So we're all hanging our lanterns and leading people into the promised land of what we know and what we've experienced. So you have something to say and people want to hear what you have to say. So even if you don't feel ready, decide that you're ready, decide that you're showing up. And again, it has to be your yes, right? Or your no. So I want to ask you what the rules are in your family. Because going back to this idea before that I was talking about how we often get our ideas and the stories that we play out have come from parents, family members, our partner, co-workers, friends, whatever, right? So one of the things that comes up in my 60-day reset a lot and in my 14-day cleanse and the decadent detox, this comes up a lot, is, well, if I go against what my family do, it's a betrayal. That's not what's done in my family. So this comes up a lot in terms of, okay, so let me tell you a story about Kim. There's this lovely woman in our community, Kim, and she came to office hours and we were talking about, she said, I want to know why I keep sabotaging myself. I know that those foods aren't good for me. Why do I keep grabbing for them and doing something I know is going to make me sick when I mean, I have a history of diabetes and cancer and heart disease in my family, and all of these people in my family have died in their 40s and 50s. Like way sooner than they should. And I know that I don't want to end up that way. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm in this program. I desperately don't want that. I want to have a big, beautiful life. I want to be strong and healthy. I want to be better. Why do I keep doing this? And everybody start putting in the chat, I feel the same way. I do the same way. My sister's got cancer right now, and whatever. I mean, we could all relate to this. So I asked her, what would it feel like if you got healthy and well when the rest of your family members have not been able to? What does that feel like for you? What would everybody in your family think? And she said, oh, I would feel like I was leaving them behind. So it's just such a really juicy place to swim around in, isn't it, right? Where when we dare to dream beyond what our family members have dreamed for us or dreamed for themselves or been willing to do for themselves, we feel like it's a betrayal, that we're letting them down or we're going beyond. Like it's kind of like when people are the first people to go to college. There is this pride in it. I was the first person to go to college in my family, but there's also this weird feeling of I've left them behind. I'm other now. I don't belong to my family. I am somehow other. And some people run towards that, and other people, there's always this weird thing where you feel like you've betrayed your family. You're actually honoring them by being better, by being more than they ever could have possibly dreamed for you, by being strong and healthy, by hanging the shiny lantern and being the example of what someone in this family can do. And sometimes the people in your family are not able to see that in the moment because of their stuff, their internal monologues, because that's what their parents taught them, right? And it's just this sort of perpetuating cycle. But if you choose to decide what is your yes and your no, and you give yourself permission to hold that, regardless of what anybody else says or does, and it is hard. I'm not saying it's not hard when you've got a whole family saying you're crazy to be eating those vegetables, or I'm just trying to think of an example, or be going to go and live in that country, or going to do that job, or go to college, or whatever it might be, right? Homeschool your kids. That's come up in our office hours before, when they should be at a regular school or whatever it is, right? Well, okay, thank you for your opinion, but it has to be me. This has to be my decision, my life, right? And you get to decide, right? This is, again, why I keep coming back to this place of, for me, food is such a powerful portal of discoverability for what makes us tick, how we make the choices that we make. And I talked about this in episode 1. I talked about this in episode 2, where for me, how you choose to nourish yourself or not is a direct reflection of how you treat yourself in the rest of your life, the amount of self-love, the regard that you have for yourself. And I have never, in the thousands of people that I have coached, seen an example where that is not true. Just never. And so I feel like it's just a really powerful thing to keep looking at. So I'm going to ask you again, are the food choices and the lifestyle choices that you are making getting you closer to the life that you want and all that you want to have in your life, or is it taking away from that? So I talked in episode 1 and 2 about how the downloads come quicker and faster and you can tap into your intuition when you've got clean pathways and you're eating really well, right? You just have more choices. I talked in episode 2 about how I don't want my physical health, my physical state to be a barrier for me doing anything. I don't want to not be able to climb that mountain or go water skiing or travel and walk around Paris all day long and not feel exhausted because of my physical health. I don't want to not miss out on doing things with my friends and family because I don't have a body that's able to do it. I just don't want that to ever be a reason why I say no. So I ask you, what are the reasons you're saying no to your dreams, to the it has to be me? What's holding you back from taking action, right? So the other thing I want to ask you is, do you make proactive decisions or reactive decisions? And I think that we're a mixture of both, right? But what's your dominant way of making choices? So do you make choices when your back's against the wall and that's the only choice you can make, when it's forced upon you? And I've told stories in this podcast so far about when I have had to make reactionary choices when someone's like, I don't want to be married to you anymore. You know, there's lots of examples of this, right? A choice would be when my father called and told me he had cancer, and I mean, I needed to get home ASAP, right? So obviously there's situations like that. But the nuances of how you navigate your way through those things those situations that are thrust upon you, there's a lot of choices in there, right? And so for me, I want to see if you can relate to this. For me, I make the best choices, my most empowered choices when I've got time to make them. When I've really thought about it, I've weighed up all the options, I've really thought something through, I've gotten strategic, I've really gone, okay, I've talked it through with friends and family members, I've gone and spoken to my counselor about it or whatever it might be. And I've really weighed it up and then, right, boom, I'm ready to go. When something's thrust upon me and I wait until I don't have any other choices and it's the only choice I can make, it doesn't feel empowered and it's often a knee-jerk last option. I made this choice because I didn't have any other choices, right? So an example of that, I'm going to go back to health again, right? Because, you know, we can all relate to this and it's what I know. Do you want to wait until you get the disease diagnosis, where your only option is some pretty fast intervention, medical treatment, or death? Or do you want to be proactive about it and make better choices along the way so that you can make room for these bigger choices? So I was really inspired. Again, I just get so inspired by people in my community and my program. So Stephanie came into the community. She's also a dear friend of mine. She came into the community and she decided to be mindful about her health, her health and her food choices and her lifestyle choices because a friend got diagnosed with cancer. And so this friend was going into treatment and making all these changes to the food and the exercise and doing the treatment. And it made her think, why is it that we only make these changes when we get the diagnosis, when we get the disease diagnosis and our back's against the wall and we absolutely have to or die? It's literally take action or die. Why? Why don't we just make changes and make these decisions because we want to be better and we want to just expand. So she had just started menopause and was not sleeping well, didn't have energy, had put on extra weight, wasn't feeling good in herself, and she just didn't feel good. And she decided, I'm going to use this, I'm going to take up this invitation from, this friend's diagnosis, this mirror I'm looking into right now and going, okay, how can I be better? I want to be proactive rather than reactive. I'm not waiting until I get the diagnosis. I'm doing it now so that I don't get the diagnosis. It's inspiring. And so she just went all in. And she's like, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, I'm going to figure this out, and I want to see how good I can feel at 54. And because she decided She made it happen. So she was sleeping through the night. She was waking up with energy. She lost over 17 pounds and could have lost more. She just decided that's the weight she wanted to be at. She learned how to fuel her body efficiently. She learned how to use, food as a tool to control how she was feeling in her body when all of her friends around her were struggling through menopause and were not sleeping through the night, didn't have energy, didn't think they could lose weight, and weren't, because they weren't deciding it has to be me. To arm myself with knowledge, to make the changes that are necessary. Oh, I'm sorry that you're not going to have that glass of wine. She says, no, I've realized that it's kind of a trigger for my hot flashes. Not going to have it. Thank you. Oh, we're sorry. No, actually, I'm really not, because I'm going to feel really, really great tonight. I'm going to sleep through the night and I'm going to feel really great tomorrow, right? So we are making choices all the time, right? So are you proactive or are you reactive? Are you waiting for the big diagnosis or the big tragedy or the big opportunity? Or are you just deciding, I'm doing it now, whether it's the right time, I'm doing it now, right? So I think, with health, with a job opportunity, am I moving to this country? Am I going to get pregnant now? Whatever the decision might be, do I walk away? Do I get out of this relationship? When is it going to be the right time? So it's about deciding, right? So I think what I've discovered through my office hours is that so often this health piece is about not believing that you deserve it. And that comes from your family, right? So why don't you feel like you're good enough to feel good? Right? It's kind of an interesting one, right? It's a conversation that comes up over and over and over, this self-worth, this self-love piece. I'm not enough. I'm not strong enough. I don't have what it takes to make that happen. I don't have what it takes. Well, you decide if you have what it takes. And if there's certain actual tangible skills that you need to make it happen, like I want to be an electrician, where you got to go and you got to go and do an apprenticeship and learn about this stuff in order to be an amazing electrician, if that's one of your dreams. Of course you have to do that, but it starts with you deciding, I have what it takes to even go and finish the training, do the training, learn it, right? And it's a process of all these it has to be me moments along the way that lead you to the place where you actually get the dream. You become the dream. You're living the dream, right? Of being the electrician, or of being strong and healthy, of climbing Mount Everest, or, running the Boston Marathon. Or I'm just trying to think of examples of things that people want to do, right, in my program. Another thing that comes up a lot is, well, it works for everybody else, but I'm an anomaly. It's not going to work for me. Nothing ever works out for me. Everybody else it works out for, but it doesn't work out for me. Well, I'm going to say that probably comes from your family too, right? That's a button that got installed. This belief that it can't work out for you. Well, if you buy into the belief that it can't work out for you, then it's not going to work out for you, because that's what you've already decided. We make it work out for ourselves. You make it work out for yourself because you just figure it out along the way. And sometimes life is a cha-cha, right? We don't just go forward. In life, we tend to only value forward, more, money, prestige, power, success, fame, whatever it is, right? Well, I don't know about you, but I have learned my most potent, powerful lessons from the messiest, most painful, embarrassing, humiliating, I'm brought to my knees, I can't gasp for breath, I almost die situations. However you interpret that. Because here's the great thing about those lessons: you do not forget them. You do not forget them, and you don't want them to happen again. They are gifts, albeit, excuse my language, gifts wrapped in dog shit, but they're gifts, glorious gifts, when you choose to see them that way and you choose to learn from them, right? So this comes up a lot. This comes up a lot in my program. Well, this won't work for me. I've tried every diet on earth. This won't work for me. Like if I have pre-calls with people leading into my program, or they're on a webinar with me, or I might meet them at an event, I might be speaking at something. And in office hours, even in the first couple of weeks before you start to really feel that, yeah, it's going to work for you if you start being strategic. And I always say the same thing, which is, first of all, what we're doing is not a diet, right? Because I don't believe in diets, right? We're just eating beautiful, healthy food and you're learning how to put it together in combinations that work for you and your body, right? But if we look at any situation, it's about making it work for you. And if you need help to do that, you get help, right? So, like I said before, we can get addicted to our excuses because it's what we know. Like I feel like for me, often I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of success. What happens if I actually get that thing that I want? It has to be me, and then I don't have what it takes. I'm a fraud. The imposter syndrome. I'm not going to be able to do it. Well, worry about that when you get to it, and you'll just decide to step up and resource yourself and go and study and learn and prepare for that meeting. Read what you need to read. Go and learn the skill that you need to learn to keep it has to be me, being ready for it, right? So we often you can put all this time and energy into all the reasons why it won't work out instead of throwing all of your energy into all the reasons why you're going to make sure it works out, right? And if it doesn't work out, then you're going to switch course and go, wow, okay, well, I learned from that. Sometimes it has to be me comes wrapped in a whole lot of what does not have to be me, right? And this is actually why okay, this is an example. When somebody, let's say we're like in week 1, we're in week 3, we're in week 6 of the program, whatever it is in my office hours, and someone says, oh, Tess, I know I wasn't supposed to, but I had a glass of wine, I had a piece of pizza, we had some cake at this party, and I can't believe it. I just feel like I've set myself back like 3 weeks. I can't believe I did this. Did you enjoy the cake? Did you enjoy the pizza? Did you enjoy the glass of wine? Did you make a beautiful memory with your friends? Yes. Well, what fabulous reasons to eat the pizza and drink the wine and have the cake, right? And it's about balance. Yeah, but I don't feel good today. I feel so sick. Well, that's data, isn't it? Because a few weeks ago, you may not have noticed that you felt so terrible, and now you are aware. So I get this a lot. I never knew how bad I felt until I felt this good. I've never felt this good in my entire life before. I've never slept through the night, had energy like this. I've never felt like this. I didn't know that this is how I could feel in my body. Well, you don't know until you know, right? And when someone said, this was Jenny saying this to me, why would I do that to myself? I've sabotaged myself. Well, but hang on a second. You've learned, right? You've learned and you feel it in your body, and that knowing in your body, we can't replace that knowing, right? Like we can read something, we can hear a rendition of someone else's version of what they learned, but until you experience it yourself in your body, then you really know, right? And so often we got to learn lessons many times before we start to hold it, right? And make different choices. And so I think that's what makes life exciting, right? Is that we get to keep learning. We get to keep learning and growing. And so again, going back to that idea of you can't fail. It's just winning and learning, right? Even if you eat the cake, you eat the pizza, you drink the wine, but then you go, whoa, okay. And then the more you practice and the more you learn, you start to really pick and choose your moments from an empowered place. Well, I'm going to drink the wine and eat the pizza tonight because we're all celebrating that mom got a new job, or that, or just because I'm laughing and we're sharing memories and I haven't seen these people for a week, or whatever it is. You pick and choose those empowered moments where you do that, knowing that you're not going to feel so great, but you're going to feel really great in other ways, right? And then you eat a salad, you eat some sauerkraut, you stay hydrated, you balance it out, right? It's about balance. One of the other big barriers to taking action on it has to be me is I don't have the time. I don't have time. I don't have time for that. I'm already so overwhelmed with all the things that I've got to do. I don't have time for that. So I'll give you an example in my program. So it will be, I don't have time to cook. I don't have time to eat healthy. Well, okay. So let's think about this. We all have ideas about what is worth spending our time on. And it is our time, right? And there's only so many hours in the day. And there's only so many hours that we're going to have in a lifetime on this planet. All right. So I don't know about you, but I like quality over quantity. So I'll give you what I tell people in my office hours. A minute takes 60 seconds to pass, no matter what we do, right? But we get to control how we experience those 60 seconds. And if we're going to go with the quality versus quantity, and we're going for quality, I would rather spend a little bit of time now to get time later to enjoy fully and be fully present with a healthy, strong body and a sharp wit and have mental clarity and enjoying my life and having energy, right? So the time that I spend on making that salad for 10 minutes rather than going through the drive-through where I mindlessly put it into my mouth, you either get the hard now or the hard later, right? So this whole, oh, it's just too hard. It's too hard. I just want easy. Okay, so that kind of dovetails into the time thing for me, right? Where everything is easy and everything is hard. It just depends on our perspective, right? And it can be easy and hard, the same things, right? So here's an example. I'll use a food example again. Let's say I'm just mindlessly, I'm rushing the kids to soccer and I'm driving around and I just don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to drive into the McDonald's drive-through and it's easy. I can eat while I'm driving along. I can multitask. It takes me 3 seconds. I don't have to think about it. It's easy. But then it becomes really hard because it's really hard to digest poor quality food. We know this. Science tells us this. Anecdotal feeling in our body tells us this. Bloating, gas, farting, feeling tired, feeling lethargic, and then you get sick, right? If you eat that every single day, like that Supersize documentary taught us that, right? Where that, I think his name was Jordan, right? Where he was really healthy. He ate McDonald's all day, every day for all of that time, and he got very, very sick, right? So we know, we just know. I mean, we don't need that documentary to tell us that. We just know from science, right? We can do it a little bit. We just can't do it every day, or we're going to get really sick. So you get the hard or the easy and you get to decide, right? So going back to the time thing, I would prefer to spend the time investing in my mental capacity, my good emotions, my healthy, strong body, so that I'm making use of that time, right? So think about it this way too. When you make decisions, you're spending time either way, right? Like you got to spend some time. So you spend more time feeling shitty and awful in your body and less time feeling great, or you spend more time feeling great and less time feeling bad, right? And then you get to decide what the path to that looks like, right? So another thing that comes up a lot in my community is I can't do that. I can't do what you're doing. I can't do what these other people in the group and they're posting their pictures of their food and they're cooking. I don't cook. I can't cook. Well, my friend Lynn, dear, dear friend of mine, says, can you read? Well, cooking is reading. And she's quite opinionated about this, but she's right? Like if you can read, you can cook. Now, of course, and if you want to become a Michelin star chef, of course there's some minutiae involved and the sense of flavors and some great skill involved. But if you just want to be a home cook and you want to nourish yourself, cooking is reading and you can follow a recipe, right? And so I hate to cook. Well, when I hear that from somebody, I hear I don't love myself. Because unless you're going to hire a private chef and you've got all the money in the world, you have to at least pick up some foods or you've got to prepare some foods. How else are you going to feed yourself, right? Or somebody else in your family's doing it, right? Maybe. But to me, again, this is about perspective, right? So someone else might say, I hate to exercise. I hate to do my homework. Well, there's certain things that we have to do to get ahead, right? To be able to function in the world. And the reason why I keep using this food analogy is because we all have to do it every day, right? So we have to eat regularly in order to fuel our brain, in order to function, in order to stay alive. To me, cooking is an act of self-love. And besides what we think and how we act, I think it is the greatest act of self-love, right? Where it is a gift that we give our present self of feeling good and our future self, right? That it's a promise that we make to ourselves and our loved ones. I am going to show up as the best version of myself. I'm going to be strong and healthy. I'm going to be ready for whatever comes our way. I'm in with you and I'm present as the whole me, not the muted, dulled down version of me, not the sick me, the healthy, vibrant me, right? I mean, what you put love and care and attention into expands, right? And think of it this way. We're consuming all the time. We're consuming information all the time. We're consuming the world around us. How much are we creating? Now, I'm a creative person. I'm an actor, a presenter, a voice actor, an author, a cook, or, a program creator, or whatever. But so are you. So what are you creating in your life? I feel like cooking is one way of creating. It's a really powerful way of putting something really beautiful out into the world, and you feed yourself, and by extension you feed others, right? Whether you're feeding them with the food that you're making today or by showing up as your whole self to feed and nourish them, right? So yeah, because I know you have to eat all the time like I do. What is your relationship with food? What is your relationship with cooking? What does your relationship with that look like? And how is that serving you, or is it detracting from the life that you want to live? Another way that we don't take action and we say no to our dreams, or we don't take up the invitation for it has to be me, is I don't want to spend the money. I don't have the money. I don't have the money. And listen, how much money we have is a real thing, and we need money in the world to buy food, to go places, it absolutely affects our choices, right? And we all have a different amount of money in our bank account right now. 100%. That is a reality. And we've all got different ideas about how we want to spend our money, right? So how are you spending your money? So are you spending it in places that are helping you expand into your better self? Or are you spending money on things that detract from that are distractions from that? So here's an example. Well, I don't have time to buy healthy food. It's actually cheaper to buy fast food. And in many places, that is true. Yes, I take your point, is what I would say to someone in office hours who says that to me. How much money did you spend on takeout this year? How much money did you spend on doctor's visits? How much money did you spend on medications, on supplements? How much money did you spend on covering up or making up for the fact that you were not spending money on healthy food? How much money did you spend? Where does that work for you? And 99% of the time, we sort of work out that tens of thousands of dollars have been spent on these other things. And when you're healthy and strong, you start to spend very little on medication, very little on, you go to your annual doctor's visit, you're not on medications, and that investment in that healthy food is starting to look really, really cheap, right? Like really inexpensive, and a really smart use of your money, right? So it's like, I like to think about money in those terms because it empowers me to think about where I want to spend my time and money, right? Like, it's an opportunity to get really clear about what your priorities are, this money thing, because we've all got a different money template, don't we? Right? Like you think about what's important to you, right? So Gina is another friend of mine. They're all friends of mine now, right? But she came into the program and she has lupus, and had spent her life feeling really, really, really awful. And I had watched her really struggle with her health. And well, and eat fast food and eat poorly, and it was really starting to become a real problem. It was really affecting her quality of life. And as she moved into her 50s, things were really starting to progress and get worse, and she was starting to get all these other issues and aches and pains, and just really getting in the way of the magic. And a lot of the excuses, right, of I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I'm going to feel deprived, I'm going to feel miserable. I like my burger and fries. I don't want to give that up. And so I said to her, well, at the moment, you've got your burger and fries, and yeah, they're delicious, but you're giving up your dreams. And I think that's a lot more painful. Doesn't mean you can't have the burger and fries. I'm just inviting you to have them less and to put some of these other foods into the mix as well. And you know what happened? She has not had a lupus flare up in 2 years. She is off most of her medications. She has energy. She sleeps through the night. She lost almost 40 pounds and counting. She feels good about herself. She's learned to value cooking and preparing food as a form of self-love. And she feels better than she ever has before. And she still eats the burger and fries every once in a while, but again, chooses to do it from a place of empowerment. So this whole, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I'm not ready, it's not the right time. There's kind of like like a real flow on and snowball effect, a domino effect that happens with this stuff, right? And I want to address this little treat culture, right? Well, I deserve this. I deserve that piece of cake. I deserve that donut. I've had a horrible day, right? Like, so, and we're conditioned in society about this, right? Like, what happens when it's somebody's birthday, when it's somebody's graduation, when something great happens, when something terrible happens, when a death happens? We all show up and we've baked a cake, right? Or we've baked, we show with sugar, basically, right? Like, let me give you a little sugar, because that's the antidote for anything terrible, is that it just makes us feel good. And let's be honest, sweet things are delicious. Like, there's a reason why sugar is a drug and we want more of it, right? It just is delicious. But again, when things are not in balance, they don't serve us anymore. So eating one piece of cake might make us feel great and we're having a lovely memory and a beautiful celebration with friends and family. But when we start to do it every single day, it starts to remember that formula I gave in episode 1 or 2, was it, where I said, sugar creates acid, acid creates inflammation, and inflammation is at the root of all dis-ease. And when left unattended to, those little niggly forms of dis-ease progress to chronic disease. It's just how it works, right? So sugar is the enemy of better health. Now, we're going to eat it sometimes because it's fun, but when we start to eat it every single day, it just causes chronic inflammation in our body and leads to all kinds of health issues, right? So we know this in society, but we still do it, right? So, it's kind of like sugar is an addiction, right? Comfort eating is an addiction. It's a way that we help ourselves feel better, or at least that's what we think we're doing, but then we feel a whole lot worse, right? Because physically we start to feel really bad. It kind of is like alcoholism in a way, right? Where if you can do 1 or 2 drinks and then put it aside, that can be a lovely thing you do with friends. But then when you need it and you have to do it all the time, then it becomes an addiction that doesn't serve you, right? So Liz, another lovely person in our community, she told a really great story about how she just would drink her Coke every single day and would eat sugary, fast food whenever she felt like it, and just would aimlessly put it into her mouth because she wanted to give herself pleasure, wanted to feel good, right? And she would just be shoveling things out with it without even thinking about it, which I think, happens a lot. I can even do that too. We often eat as a secondary activity. We don't think about it, right? So before she started the program and she decided, I'm going to come in, her A1C was really elevated. She had high blood pressure and cholesterol. She was overweight. She wasn't sleeping through the night. She didn't have energy. She had chronic inflammation, aches and pains. She was, would bend over and it would take her 5 minutes to get back up again. She'd be lightheaded. I mean, there were all kinds of signs that her body was giving her that she needed desperately to make some changes. And she knew it, and her doctor told her she had to do it, right? Or she was going to really be in some trouble. So to her credit, she decided it has to be me. She came into the program, and in anticipation of giving up all of her favorite things, she binged ate everything in her house, basically. And she came in and she was very, very, very sick for the first few weeks because she was going through massive detox symptoms, right? And she was very generous in sharing with everybody what was happening for her. I'm talking diarrhea, like really not feeling good. And she said, wow, has this been a powerful lesson for me, of, again, what I was saying before, of I didn't know how bad I felt until I felt really, really good. I just cannot believe that I can feel as good as I felt. She got the most extraordinary results, regulated her blood pressure and cholesterol. All her numbers came back into acceptable ranges. She lost over 30 pounds in 60 days. I mean, it was extraordinary, but it was due to her commitment. She decided it has to be me to make these changes. It has to be me, and I'm going to do what it takes, and I'm going to keep reaching out and asking for help, right? And she did, and we were delighted to provide that support. So again, I'm going to ask you, what is your relationship with food like, and how does that correlate to your relationship with other things? Do you binge other things in your life? Is it an all or nothing thing in other parts of your life? Do you do things that you use to comfort you, but actually aren't really doing that? They're helping you stay disconnected and hiding, right? This, you know, and again, I'm going to say, I think it often comes back to the expectations and beliefs that other people have for us, not necessarily what we're holding for ourselves, right? That's another thing. It's another thing. Yeah, I want to talk about that for a second. Another thing that comes up is these beliefs that we also hold about the other people in our lives. Like I've been talking about the beliefs that our friends and family members have about us. We also hold limiting beliefs about the other people in our lives, what they're capable of, and how they're going to be able to meet us or not in our lives. Like when I say it has to be me, what's that going to mean for the rest of the people in my life? And are they going to be able to step up? So let me think about it. Okay, here's an example. So this happens a lot in my program. Again, I'll use a food example where somebody will come in and, okay, I'm going to use Jan as an example. This is another lovely person in our community where she just went, my husband's not going to eat this food. He's not going to do it. He's not going to eat it. My children aren't going to eat this food. They're just not. And I said, really? So would you like to give them an opportunity? So empower them, show them, the food, what you're going to be making, invite them to pick something that they like the look of or the sound of or whatever. And just give everybody a chance of trying this. Well, you know what happened? And this happens a ton. She comes into office hours the following week and said, well, thanks a lot, Tess. I'm loving you, but I'm hating you right now, because not only did it work and everybody loved the bolognese and wanted more of it, but now I don't have any leftovers this week because the whole family all ate it all. I'm like, stay away from my food, So, it's really interesting how, gosh, allow people to surprise you. Allow them to step up, make room for them to step up. And that's not always the story. Sometimes it happens very gradually, right? But I'm going to crow really loudly. I have made many a husband of women in my program become a vegetable lover and be able to eat vegetables, right? And listen, most of the people that enter my community are actually omnivores, right? They eat meat, they eat fish, they eat chicken or whatever. We're just teaching everybody to eat more vegetables, and then you decide what else you're going to be supplementing that with. You can be vegan, vegetarian, omnivore, whatever labels you want to choose, but we all should be eating a lot of plants, right? We just know that helps the human body function better, right? So, actually, I'm going to tell you that story as well. Another example is Tony, another fantastic woman in our community. She really decided she was going to find solutions for this, right? She's got an absolute carnivore, omnivore husband who loves his meat and potatoes, loves the fatty fried food, thinks healthy food is ridiculous. That's for chumps. That's for sissies. Like, I'm a man. I'm eating my meat, and eats very few vegetables. And she just decided to do it the really gentle way. And I'm a really big fan of buffet style eating. Like, we've got a one family, one meal philosophy in our community where you literally make the base recipe and then you put different kinds of protein on the table. And you might put pasta and bread on the table for the rest of your family, and you might sit there with yours and have, vegetables with yours or something like that. But you all sit in communion with each other and celebrate the day together, eating a version of the same thing. And then everybody feels in control over their choices. And it's very empowering for children in particular that they have control over some aspects of what they're doing. I found it to be a very successful strategy. And so she really ran with that strategy, and she literally would make the base recipe. and put, some other things on the table that she knew both of her children would love and eat. So a little bit of bread, a little bit of pasta, maybe some rice. Her husband had a steak, her daughter loved chicken, and she just made it work for every person, right? And it was something that succeeded so spectacularly, where they started to really commune around the table and really talk about the different things that were on the table. And it was a source of discussion, instead of being on devices and being disconnected. Food became this point of connection for that family, right? And how they could empower themselves, how they could make sense of it, commune, participate in it together their way. Each of them was doing it a slightly different way, but they could come to a point of intersection and communion. And I think that's what food does. I think it brings people together, just like sports do, right? Like, when you go to an amazing sports game, you're at the Super Bowl or you're at an NBA final or whatever, you're at a tennis match. It just brings strangers together, with our common shared experience of tastes and smells and flavors and satiation, satisfaction, joy. It's how if we think about so many things in life, we're eating and drinking together, right? In celebration. And food just must be joyful. It's one of the great pleasures of life, right? So I do want to challenge a view that you might hold, that healthy eating has to be miserable and torturous. It can be fun and it can be so glorious and be full of flavor and delight, and that's, I think, I leave a lot of the nutrition counseling to my dietitians because they're medical practitioners. That's really what I bring to it is the coaching and the mindset piece, but also, I just love making, healthy food that people are excited to eat again, right? That just gets me jazzed up, right? I want better nutrition to be delicious, right? And fun, because that's what makes it stick. When you are excited about the food that you're eating, you want to eat it again. So healthy food actually has to be even more delicious than unhealthy food. It just has to be. Or we're not going to want to eat it. We're going to want to eat the pizza and the donut. We're going to want to eat the candy bar. We're going to want to eat the takeout, right? All the time, because the naked piece of broccoli on the plate tastes bland and disgusting. Well, I don't eat plain broccoli, ugh, right? I mean, I love broccoli, but I'm going to put some olive oil and lemon juice on it. That's a quick, easy thing. Or I'm going to put some spices on it and make it really schmocko, right? So this is, again, the stuff that you learn with practice. So just keep practicing. So going back to this idea of what's holding you back, I want to close with this today. I'm going to give you an acting analogy, right? Because I'm an actor. When you're learning improvisation and you're in an improv class, or you're ad-libbing a scene and sort of like trying to dissect what the author might mean in a text, and you're kind of putting it into your own words or whatever it might be, right? So the golden rule of improvisation is yes and. The idea that you're not allowed to say no, that you don't block any opportunities or any possibilities. You remain open to absolutely all offers. All offers. Yes, and. Okay, what's here for me? What's here for me today? What's here for me? I don't know about that. And that might be the answer. In the end, it might lead you to the no that leads you to your next yes, right? So I would encourage you to think about what you're mulling over in your life today in those terms, in the yes and, right? Remaining open to all possibilities for you and for your life. But going back to what I was saying before, it has to be your yes and your no, right? Thank you for joining me. Next week, I want to button this little 4-episode solo arc with me before we start interviewing some fabulous people. I want to talk about taking action, what we got to do to really take action and feel good about it. So join me next week and we'll dive into that together.
I want to hear about your It Has to Be Me story. So head on over to ithastobeme.com/stories to share it in our free community. You can also join the conversations we're having about this episode and others. I'm Tess Masters. Join me next week and we'll dive inside another great story to help us go from dreaming to doing.